Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Ideas Made to Matter. I'm Ann Guzman. I'm a 16 and a member of the MIT Sloan Alumni Board, and I'm so happy to be with you this reunion weekend. If you're like me, you're excited, stimulated, sugared up, and ready for more. So today's session is one for the books because it brings together alumni from very different industries and life experiences. But all four speakers share something in common, a willingness to engage deeply with ideas that shape how we live, lead, build, and connect with others. We're so excited to have you with us, and I hope these talks spark not only reflection, but great conversations long after the session ends. Our first speaker works in an industry most of us depend on every single day, yet rarely stop to think about until something breaks. When we talk about global supply chains, it's easy to imagine abstract systems, containers, routes, algorithms, delays on a dashboard somewhere. But for John Acquaviva, these systems have never been abstract. For much of his adult life, he spent living and working in some of the world's most remote regions, across West Africa, the Middle East, Russia, and Europe, places where the efficiency or inefficiency of logistics can profoundly shape everyday life. John spent more than a decade at Schlumberger in product management and operations roles before co-founding Pelicargo, a logistics tech startup working to transform how freight companies and airlines book cargo capacity globally. Pelicargo is also an MIT Delta V alumni company. He holds an MBA from MIT Sloan and both a bachelor's and master's degree in engineering from Cornell. As you listen to John today, I'd invite you to think about how much of modern life depends on systems we rarely notice until they fail, and how differently the world can look when you've experienced those systems from places far outside the centers of convenience most of us are used to. Please join me in welcoming John Acquaviva, an MBA from class of 21.
Hey, everyone. I think I'm going to get some slides. Hello, everyone. Good to see you all. Let me see. Oh, okay, perfect. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm so happy to be here, and very nice to see everybody. I wanted to talk a little bit about the industry I'm working in, why I started to do it, a little bit of my experiences through that, and I guess some perhaps tips along the way or some experiences along the way. So, as Ann gave me this wonderful introduction, I spent most of my adult life overseas in very remote locations around the world. Places where, if the supply chain doesn't work right, some days you can't get all the food you want, you can't get electricity, you can't get power, the operations that I was managing just totally stop. So during COVID, I left that wasn't me. Let me see. Hope that comes up. During COVID, I left my previous job, and my job had nothing to do with logistics, but I left with this big impression that I had to come in, and this was my big problem at work, and I wanted to come in and try to solve something around it. For those who don't know the size and scale of logistics globally is about 10% of world GDP. This is the movement of cargo, inventory carrying, shipping around the world. Something along the lines of $12 trillion a year is just about logistics. Maybe 6 million companies, over 100 million people directly employed. is really this just huge, massive, we're getting there. Okay. This huge, massive industry in the world. My interest, and really from my experience, was always air freight logistics. Really because of the places I've lived around the world, there's kind of no other way to get cargo there. So in my past experience, we were doing this every day, millions of dollars every month we were moving in air freight logistics. It's quite interesting for me because it's a small part of all cargo. It's 1% of all shipments by weight, but it's about 35% by value. So this is really the kind of high value cargo. You could think pharmaceuticals, semiconductor equipment, a lot of perishable shipments like flowers and things like this is all moving in air freight, urgent ship parts and things. When I say air freight, a lot of people's experience here is probably like UPS, FedEx, things like that. That's not really what I mean. That's actually about 15% of what moves in the air. What I'm talking about is really like commercial air freight. So this is things that move a lot of times in passenger planes or in kind of dedicated freighter aircraft operated by like these non-integrated companies. So the plane that you would fly from Boston to London, that holds about 45,000 pounds of cargo underneath the passengers. So it's passengers, luggage, cargo. Now, our experience and my experience in the industry, and probably whoever else has experience with this, our real data shows about 45% of air freight shipments are delayed or worse. And they can be delayed for a lot of reasons. The most obvious one is people actually have to touch the cargo, right? So it's very easy for a forklift to run into a cargo, knock a hole in a bag, it falls everywhere, and there's delays, issues, it doesn't happen. But if you kind of think about what moves on air freight, like what if this is like a ship's propeller of a cargo ship that's going to Singapore and has to be there overnight? Well, suddenly you've delayed every single container on a cargo ship for however many days to get this fixed, and all the knock-on effects of all the industries, stores, shops associated with that. Another real example of my business, during COVID, we had a shipment of 100,000 kilos of baby formula going from the US to Manila. Huge delays in the shipment because of all the disruptions. It's hard to even imagine the impacts of like this big of an order of baby formula with this big delay. So huge impacts. The second interesting statistic and why it's important to me, worldwide, 50% of air cargo capacity flies unsold. So what I mean by this, there's a lot of reasons for this. Some of it is just natural trade flows. China, US is more cargo than US, China. A lot of it is because of just inefficiency in the market. There are so many chains of communication, of data flow in logistics. You have the company selling, the company buying. You have the warehousing in the US. You have the distribution, the import customs, export customs, airline. Everybody needs to be completely on sync with all of the information to actually have an efficient sale and to have an efficient cargo movement. This is what we try to solve. The impacts of this huge amount of unsold space, they're massive. It's kind of like a carpool, right? If you have a bus or something, you want to fill it to the maximum capacity to get the most efficiency out of it. So we think at least 100 billion in uncaptured revenue, 9 billion gallons a year wasted fuel. Like, we really want to use these fixed resources well. Pelicargo, what we do, so we find, negotiate, book, we track air freight. We work with the airlines, we help them digitize their capacity, we help make it more accessible and streamline the entire process for the people actually buying this air freight space, so end to end. A little bit about it. We started this in Sloan. It took a little while to actually build up the tech and get it growing. Now we're growing maybe 10 times a year for the last 2 years or so. Life's busy. We're working hard, but we're growing really fast. We have some really amazing airline partners. We work with pretty much every airline worldwide. We just did a big press release, for example, with Emirates Sky Cargo. We just launched with them. We're doing Qatar next a couple weeks. So yeah, it's growing really fast, and it's actually adding value when you start actually linking some of these connections and adding technology into this type of industry. Now, just kind of a few observations along the way of doing a startup. Doing a startup that took a few years to actually get off and get running. The first thing about my journey, startups and really any new project that you're going to do, it's just this journey of peaks and troughs. A lot of times troughs, right? Some things like this in the beginning, it's do you actually do a startup? Do you have partners? Are your partners committed? Then later it becomes more difficult problems. Do we have money to do this? Do we have money this year, next year? Did we lose a big customer? Every day it's things like that. And so as a founder, it's really our responsibility to be the one that's injecting energy into the company. Sometimes it can be a little bit lonely, to be honest, but you have to, as a founder, be the one that takes the whole company up over the trough. So for us, that's really been one of the biggest, most important things. The people you work with are really critical, and you always have to have this kind of light to power on. The second one, and I kind of summarized a few of my points succinctly. So one, it's been really important for us, and I encourage to perform low-cost experiments. So we've really tried not to build too much without actually getting customers to use it, to buy it, to pay for it. It's been kind of a critical piece of us, and not really research. Research not an experiment. An experiment is actually getting someone to have, let's say, behavioral evidence that they're going to pay for something. Two, we're a digital company. It's still always about people. Every day, no matter what we're doing, it's about the people using our product, the people we're selling to, the people in our company. It's been really important for us, even though we're doing software, to go back and actually think about and talk to the people using it. Otherwise, you have no idea what you're doing, and it just doesn't grow. The third piece for us, and people will have different experiences, but for us, we spend a lot of time fundraising, and it's really critical to be structured about it. In our kind of 4 or 5 years in business, we've probably pitched to 70 investors, I would think, 70, 80 investors. At any time, we have a big pipeline that's going forward. Each one has different feedback, different pieces that you have to do. So we actually have to be, I'd say, almost like our product or our project management that we're going forward. That's how we treat our fundraising. And then the last one is there's always sunk costs in startups. And you have to really be, let's say, deliberate about ignoring them. You know, we've ripped down what we're doing in our experience a few times, started from scratch. It can be both the technology, the people, the business model, whatever. It's been really important for us to kind of link that bottom point and the top point. And then I've seen at one of these sessions in the past a little simple framework that I like to think about startups, so I just thought it's interesting to share. When you're going through it, to frame it into purpose, passion, and problem. So how would you like to make the world a better place? What do you enjoy doing that does not feel like work? And what problem do you want to solve? And if you have interesting answers that you're passionate about for these 3 points, then you really can be, I think, successful in what you're doing. And so that's my talk. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, John. We're living in a moment where conversations about resilience are everywhere, but conversations about vulnerability, especially among people expected to remain composed under pressure, are often much harder. Our next speaker has spent much of her life in environments where steadiness, discipline, and responsibility weren't optional. Cathy Kang served for 24 years in the U.S. Coast Guard, including assignments involving search and rescue, maritime security, and continuity of government operations during the most consequential periods in recent American history, including the aftermath of September 11th, which she'll touch on in her talk. She was also the first Coast Guard aide to then Vice President Dick Cheney and worked alongside exceptional professionals during a time of national crisis and uncertainty. Cathy today lives on the South Shore of Boston with her husband, Richard, and 2 teenage children, Noah and Grace. And what makes Cathy's story especially compelling is not simply the breadth of her experience, it's the direction her life took after that very rich career. I think many of us have been conditioned to associate strength with composure, certainty, or endurance. What makes Cathy's perspective especially worth listening to is the possibility that vulnerability, reflection, and compassion may require just as much courage. Sometimes, the people who appear strongest from the outside are the ones asking the deepest questions about meaning and how we move through difficult moments. Please join me in welcoming Cathy Kang, Sloan Fellow of Class 2006.
Wow! I'm so happy to be here. Big honor, big honor. I have an embarrassing secret. As you heard, I used to be in the Coast Guard, and I got rescued at Coast Guard Beach. It's on Cape Cod, which looks like this. Last summer, my teen Noah and I were coming home from Provincetown with a quick plan for a quick dip at Coast Guard Beach, which is right here. But Noah was not in the mood. It's too hot. My skin will get salty. My hair will get messed up. Fine, stay in the parking lot. I'll be quick. This is a picture of Coast Guard Beach that very day. It was phenomenal. High tide, not a cloud in the sky, lots of sunbathers, not too many people in the water. I was giddy. I put my bag down, I start to wade in. The lifeguard says, "Miss, you might want to move your bag so it doesn't get wet. You can put it behind my chair." I think, that's so nice. I put it behind his chair, I say, "Thanks, I'm only going in for a minute." And he says, "A lot can happen in a minute." So I wade in, and immediately a humongous wave knocks me down. Next thing I know, I'm being pulled out to sea, thrown back on shore, out, back, out, back. This is what is known as the washing machine. Now, I am familiar with the washing machine. I grew up on the Jersey Shore. All I needed to do was get my footing. Problem was, I didn't know which way was up. I was in a serious spin cycle. Suddenly, someone grabs me, pulls me out of the water, and says, "I've got you." It was a lifeguard. Now, a normal person would be relieved and grateful. I was mortified. I was in the Coast Guard for 24 years. I served on ships. We pulled people out of the water, put them on solid ground, went back to work. My entire life, I have been driven to be a strong woman, independent, fearless. The words "damsel in distress" make me throw up a little. I thank him. He asks us if I'm okay, and of course I say yes. But it took me a while for the world to stop spinning enough so I could walk. When I got to the bathhouse, I noticed that there was blood streaming down my legs. I had been sandblasted. I take my towel, wrap it around my waist as quickly as I can, because God forbid anyone notice and ask me if I'm okay. When I get back to the parking lot, Noah's on their headphones. They take them off and go, "That was very quick." I just stood there staring. Then they said, "What?" I just got rescued out of the water. Noah bursts out laughing. You? I said, I'm not sure I'm ready to laugh about this yet. It took me 2 days to stop spinning because I had a mild concussion. I kept replaying that incident in my head over and over again because I believe that there is something to be learned in everything that happens to us. Boy, did I learn my lesson. 3 days after that fateful moment, my husband Richard and I picked up our daughter Grace from camp on the Cape. We took a detour to Coast Guard Beach so I could give the lifeguard a thank you card. Because, you know, that would make us even. To my delight, he is sitting in the very same chair. I walk up, say, "Hi, I'm Cathy. What's your name?" From behind his uber cool, risky business sunglasses, he says, "Mac." Now, Mac was no high school string bean. He was a man. Muscles, colorful tattoos, a winning smile. The sun was shining behind his head like a halo. I heard an angelic chorus. Ooh! You know that movie Moana? He was like the demigod Maui, only Caucasian. I say to him, he looks at me, rather, and he says, "I helped you out of the water the other day." "Yes, you did, and I came to give you a thank you card." He reaches down and says, "Oh, I appreciate you." I appreciate you. I used to be in the Coast Guard. That was my first time here at Coast Guard Beach. Never could I imagine that I would be the one needing to be rescued. That was incredibly humbling. Of course, Mac was the one being incredibly humble. I introduce Richard and Grace, thank him again, and we go on our way. As I'm leaving, I overhear another lifeguard say, "Just another day on the job." Think about that. It's just what they do. Lifeguards, other first responders, military members, hospital workers, social workers, teachers, anyone who helps people in need. No matter what they've done, what they believe, where they come from, what they look like, and they do it with zero expectation of anything in return. That's heroism. It's easy to take for granted. This is the memorial for United Airlines Flight 93. It's in a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. It's called the Tower of Voices. And the reason it's called that is within it, there are 40 of the largest ever constructed wind chimes to represent the voices of the 40 passengers lost that day. Passengers fought to retake that plane from hijackers to prevent further loss of life. That plane was headed towards the Capitol or the White House. It crashed in that very field. The ultimate act of heroism. I was on my way to the White House that very morning at that exact time. I get overwhelmed thinking about it. So when you take the bird's eye view of what happened to me, here's what I see. Our lives will end in just one breath. We all need each other. There are heroes everywhere. There always have been, for as long as there have been human beings. We've been here for about 300,000 years. The Earth is about 4.5 billion years old. We've been here for 0.006% of that time. That's analogous to the last 5 seconds of a 24-hour day. Our current era, in 1950, started the Great Acceleration. You can see that on this hockey stick. 1950. Whoosh. We made huge advances for humanity in technology, science, medicine, agriculture, ecological awareness, renewable energy, space exploration. So much good was done. It also was the catalyst for the Anthropocene. This is what Professor John Sterman calls an unintended negative consequence. These are some measures, and you can see what has been happening. 50% of our land has been altered from deforestation, biodiversity loss. The atmosphere is changing more rapidly than ever. This is the era marked by plastics, pesticides, nuclear fallout. We are creating geological impacts that will last for thousands of years. A lot can happen in a minute. Now, this is the human genome. Professor Arnie Barnett would be so proud of me for talking about this. The number of unique people possible is effectively infinity. There are 3.1 billion base pairs in the human genome. Each have 4 possible nucleotides. That adds up to more atoms than there are in the observable universe. You know what that means? The chances that you were born are astronomical, highly unlikely. Incredible. Here's the more incredible part. We are all 99.9% identical in genetic makeup. Our differences lie in 0.1%. We have more in common than not. But don't worry, you're still a special snowflake. So what is the point of these nerdy things? The point is, our lives, our infinitesimal lives, are virtually impossible. Yet we're practically all the same person. This is David Foster Wallace, one of my favorite authors. He talks about how people are frequently unaware of that big picture. It is the human condition to live inside our heads. Or as he says, we all have the freedom to be lords of our tiny skull-sized kingdoms. But the important freedom, the really important freedom, requires attention and discipline to truly care about others, to sacrifice for them over and over in a myriad of ways. When is the next time you'll tell someone, I've got you? As we all know, our motto is mens et manus, mind and hand. That is the power of education, understanding how to think and how to act. Let's add a third lens so we can make Professor John Van Manen proud. 3 lenses. Mind, hand, and heart. Anyone can be a hero in their own way. A lot can happen in a minute. Thank you.
In communities like ours, we spend a lot of time talking about leadership, innovation, and success. What we talk about far less openly are the parts in between, the moments that feel messy, uncertain, disappointing, or even isolating while we're living through them. Our next speaker knows what it means to operate at the highest levels of healthcare strategy and innovation. Charlotte Brocker currently serves as the Executive Director and Product Strategy Lead at Novartis, where she leads US strategy and launch efforts for major oncology therapies. Across startups, consulting, and big pharma, her work has consistently sat at the intersection of science, business, and patient impact. As you listen to Charlotte today, you might find yourself reflecting not just on career paths or leadership, but on stories we quietly tell ourselves about progress, success, and what it means to be figuring things out in rooms full of accomplished people. Her talk will invite us to reconsider the role that vulnerability plays in leadership, not as weakness, but as form of courage, and maybe even responsibility to the people coming after us. Charlotte holds degrees from MIT Sloan, the Harvard MIT HSD program, and Brown. She serves on the board of Students to Science, a STEM education nonprofit, and mentors through the Healthcare Business Women's Association. And she lives in New Jersey with her husband, young son, and 2 cats. Please join me in welcoming Charlotte Rocker.
Speaking of vulnerability, I'm going to have notes, and you're not going to judge me for it. So we'll start there. I just torpedoed my career. It was a rainy weekday afternoon in New York City in December of 2019. As I stood waiting for the uptown bus, I called my husband, and I tearfully said those words, and I meant them. A few minutes earlier, I had walked out of the doors of my consulting firm, having decided with HR that I was going to take a short-term disability due to burnout. My mental health had declined to a place where I could not handle the stress of my job, and I felt like a complete, utter failure. Our theme today is ideas made to matter. So why would I stand here and talk about my biggest flop? Even today, after COVID normalized talk about burnout and mental health, actually experiencing those crises remains stigmatized, it remains isolating, and it remains far more common than any of us care to admit. But for me, in the end, that decision, that idea, the choice to walk away ended up starting the best and most fulfilling chapter of my career. So that's why I'm here. I want to share that playbook, my playbook, for turning that crisis into an opportunity. If you see yourself or someone you care about on that rainy street corner or approaching it, I hope that these 4 steps will help. Number 1, own your contribution. It would have been easy for me, and I tried, to blame my job, my clients, my teammates for the level of crisis I found myself in. And I did end up getting a new job, which was a good decision. But without owning my role, I would have ended up in the same place no matter where I worked. I had to be brutally honest with myself. I was complicit. I wasn't just exhausted. I had done this. I had built an identity, one that a lot of us in this room and graduating from this institution can probably relate to, where my value came from being the hardest working person in the room. And that identity, for me, was not sustainable. Which leads me to point number 2. Set boundaries ruthlessly. I remember one conversation with a female partner from that consulting firm a few weeks before I went out on disability. We were on a brutal project with an extremely challenging client. It was eating me alive, but she didn't seem fazed. I asked her how she separated herself from it, and she answered, "It's just work. It doesn't define me." I could not process that. I couldn't see how this all-consuming client, project, job, how that could leave space for anything else. But that was my fault and my doing. When I gave myself the opportunity to start over at Novartis, I did so determined to show up for years, not for days or weeks. Bit by bit, I started to make those behavioral shifts. I got a separate work phone, something I hated the concept of, so that I could put it in a drawer at the end of the day or over the weekend. I told my boss that I had a weekly therapy appointment and I would decline any meeting that was scheduled over it, no matter who that meeting was with. It was easy to say that, it was hard to do it, and I've done it for 6 years. My husband and I committed to our weekly dance and tennis lessons. Making space for those things, by definition, meant that I had fewer hours to work. But somehow, that space, those fewer hours, didn't make me worse at my job. They made me better at it. I filled my cup so that I had more to give. Before Novartis, and I'm not proud of this, I'd never stayed at a job longer than 2.5 years. My longest tenure anywhere after college was on this campus because I liked it so much I did 2 degrees and that took 3 years. Today, I'm more than 6 years into my tenure at Novartis, and I'm just getting started on impacting our patients, our customers, and our business. That tenure isn't a coincidence. I've been lucky, but I've also worked relentlessly to make my job an enabler of my life rather than a detractor from it. Point number 3, and this is a hard one, again, for those of us who graduated from here, get help. The prior 2 steps would have been impossible if I'd tried to do them on my own. I needed help personally and professionally, and I needed to ask for it. That ask is what I thought at the time signaled weakness, but I really learned the opposite. The people who last the longest are the ones who know they cannot do it alone. My husband, shows up a lot in this story, helped me realize that my burnout was not just affecting me, it was affecting him, and it was affecting our relationship. My doctor helped me advocate to my disability provider. My therapist helped me process the crisis and start healing from it. My career coach helped hold me accountable for showing up differently and sustainably. My medication helped change my brain chemistry. All of those things supported me like wings on my back as I started to fly this new journey. I was incredibly privileged to access all of those resources, and I know that help will look different for anyone, but we all need it in whatever form we can find it. And that takes me to point number 4, which is the biggest point that got me up here today. Help others. This is a little scary because I don't know how many people are going to do it, but raise your hand if any part of this story feels familiar, either for yourself or someone you know. And that's here, that's at Sloan. We all got here, we all got out of here, and we're still raising our hands for that story. So many of us have gone through moments like this, but we tell ourselves that those moments have made us weaker, that there's something to hide. When we do that, we give those moments the power to control us. So reach out, share your own story, or make it safe for someone else to share theirs. Recognize those moments not as signs of weakness, but as opportunities to reclaim our strength. I look back today at that young woman, younger, young, sad, crying on the street corner, and I do it with gratitude rather than pity. She wasn't ending her career. She was finally letting me build one that was going to be built to last. So if you or someone you care about find yourselves on a rainy street corner, I hope you see it for what it can be for you, the beginning of something much better. Thank you.
So whether it's on LinkedIn, in the rooms that you've been in today, and even in the subway probably, there's a lot of conversation right now about AI, healthcare, and the future of human systems, especially in a place like MIT. But underneath all those big conversations is a much personal question. What makes someone decide to spend their life trying to fix something that feels broken? On paper, our next speaker's path looks like the kind of trajectory many people associate with MIT. Electrical engineer, MIT Sloan MBA, where he was a Dean's Fellow, founder, healthcare, and AI executive. Mike Sanchez has served as CTO of a medical diagnostics company, founded a healthcare clinic, led APAC sales for an edge AI company, and now serves as founder and CEO of Otomo Health. The deeper story, however, began much earlier, with a child spending long stretches in medical waiting rooms, quietly observing the gap between the people trying to deliver care and the systems surrounded to deliver them. That experience stayed with him and eventually shaped the questions he chose to pursue, the teams he chose to build with, and the problems he continues trying to solve today. As you listen to Mike, I would invite you to consider how some of the most ambitious ideas don't begin with expertise alone, but with lived experience, curiosity, and the willingness to keep imagining better systems even before you know how to build them. Please join me in welcoming Mike Sanchez, MBA 2025.
Hello? Oh, there we go. Awesome. Good things come in pairs, so I also have notes. Let me just make sure. Yep, alrighty. So thanks everyone for taking the time. I'll get started a little bit unique, which is I'll start off by saying I hate orange juice. Now, that's a weird way to start a conversation. But what I want you to know is that I used to love it. As a kid, I went crazy for it, and it was something that I just enjoyed so deeply. But the thing is, when I was young, I was diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. Now, that's a very debilitating condition, makes it harder to move around. Life was weird. Now, back in the day, that meant that was a really rare condition. And so what happened was I had to get tested so much. People didn't know what was going on, so I went from hospital to hospital, got tested and tested. And so the reality of that is I had to go into scans, I had to do contrast dyes, and then go into scans again. And so the thing that you find is that you keep on mixing contrast dye right into orange juice. And so I don't drink orange juice anymore. I just can't. And I've thought about it a lot. It's such a small thing. Nobody did anything to hurt me. Nobody was cruel, and the system was trying to help me. But after all of that, the thing that I loved slowly and quietly became the thing I couldn't stand. And that's the thing about a broken system. It doesn't always hurt you in the way that you expect. It can hurt you by just taking things piece by piece. So you can probably guess after all of that, I certainly wanted nothing to do with healthcare. So I went straight into being an electrical engineer. I wanted to build things, build real solutions to help people. Anything but healthcare. And so then in my undergrad, I started to do some research. And my research was, how do we create a device to diagnose sleep apnea better and help get people the help that they need? So then I was back in healthcare. But after that, I went into getting my own job, which was also in healthcare, and then another one, which was also in healthcare. So I really kept choosing this without knowing why. Like there was a thread I couldn't see, or I couldn't put it down. It felt like maybe like a coincidence, or just kind of the trajectory my career took. But it wasn't. The thing that finally made me understand what was going on was actually moving to Korea. I lived out in Korea for almost 2 years, and actually met my wife over there. She's in the back with my son. And it was an amazing experience. But at one point, when I was there, I got sick enough that I had to go and see someone about it. And I was dreading this so bad. I'm in a country that I have no idea about the language, I don't have any idea about the system, and I'm coming over with all of the notions that I had from before in the American healthcare system, where I knew what to expect, which was waiting, frustration, confusion, paperwork, and waiting. So I went in there with this kind of mindset. But surprisingly, that's not what happened. I received the best care I've ever received in my life in a country where I couldn't read the signs on the wall. I didn't have to figure out where to go next. I didn't have to chase my own records. I didn't have to be my own case manager. The system did the work it was supposed to do. But I didn't fully process that until I was back in the US and I started MIT. Then it hit me all at once. The system I grew up in wasn't broken because healthcare is broken in general. It was broken because that's our system. So somewhere along the line, someone decided that it's okay for patients to go on their own when they've been diagnosed, which means someone else can decide they shouldn't need to. So that's exactly this thing that I'm trying to do right now. I'm working with a small team at a company called Otomo. And I'll keep this part short because this isn't only a talk about the company that I'm building. But the idea is this. Clinicians are buried under administrative work, and they're spending so much of their time doing things that is not caring for patients. And then patients are being diagnosed and sent out and told, good luck. We're trying to stitch this path back together. We're trying to give physicians their time back and walk patients every step of the way, rather than pointing them into the hallway and wishing them well. And it's early, so we've made significant progress. We've gone from serving 0 patients just last year at this time to now over 100,000 patient interactions every single month. And we're just getting started. We've gone from doing simple things, just like being able to do a confirmation call, to getting to more complex workflows like perioperative care, where we're walking patients through every single step of their journey throughout their surgical journey. And by far, this has been like such an amazing experience. I've got to experience things that I didn't even know were on my bucket list. I've been able to deploy these AI campaigns that go and reach all of these surgical patients. I've been able to be in the surgery room with the patients that we've interacted with and prepared and gotten to get their feedback in person. There is no words that can describe how amazing this is. That being said, all of these successes, that doesn't begin to encompass the amount of problems and obstacles that we have to overcome in the future. The reason I can get up in the morning and take on something this big is honestly kind of embarrassing to admit in front of a room full of MIT people. And it's because I'm a little naive. A lot of what passes like wisdom today is experienced people that have pessimism and have just let it harden with time. We tried that, it doesn't work. The health system won't accept that. I don't think you're in the right path. But one of the things that I think about is sometimes the reason something hasn't been solved is because the people that are qualified to solve it have been talked off the ledge into not doing it because of this type of advice. So I've come to think of what I at least experience as a feature, not a bug. So I want to make a small case for a childlike optimism, for being a little more willing to be naive about what is possible, for taking on things that you're maybe not most qualified to do so yet, but still taking it on anyways. But, and I think this is the part that matters the most, you cannot protect optimism alone. The world will sand it off of you if you let it. So the only way that I've found is to keep it really, really careful about the people that you work with and build with. The people that you are surrounded with become the ceiling of what you can achieve. And so I encourage you to be wise and choose people that believe that things are possible and choose people that will continue to remind you when you forget. Because this journey, as has been talked about before, it has its peaks and its troughs. And it is very easy to forget what you set out to do originally. So, to boil it all down, the thing that I would leave you with is be a little more willing to be naive about what's possible and be a lot more careful about who you are naive with. Thank you very much for the time.
I think one of the nice things about an event like this is that it reminds us how many different directions people can go after leaving the same place. This afternoon, we heard from alumni working across entirely different industries and experiences. But what connected all of these talks was curiosity, the willingness to keep learning, keep questioning assumptions, and keep evolving long after graduation, maybe longer than 1 year, right, Mike? That spirit is part of what Ideas Made to Matter is really about. Not just big concepts, but ideas that actually stay with people, shape decisions, change perspectives, and sometimes even change lives in quiet ways over time. Thank you to our speakers for sharing their experiences so openly, and thank you all for being part of the conversation today. I hope the discussions continue well beyond this room, over coffee, over vodka, over something else, and throughout the rest of Reunion Weekend. Have a great evening, everyone.